Hello, I am the host, I guess. Hello, welcome to the Games End podcast. My name is Atty. I'm a massive Zelda nerd, as you can already tell in my room layout. That's Evan to my right, and Shashank to my bottom. And I was thinking, it's COVID time. There's a pandemic going on. Everyone's making podcasts. Why don't we make podcasts? It's a fun way to hang out with friends and talk about cool stuff.
Yeah.
You want to talk about what the games then is for people who are new?
Sure. We are a student group at the University of Alberta. We have three main pillars: talk, make, and play games. So we meet up, or we usually meet up weekly when there's not a global pandemic, and we just talk, make, and play games together. We'll talk about different things happening in the development space, as well as just fun games we've played, and we'll play them together.
Yeah, and this kind of what podcast's going to be like. We're gonna be a little bit, try to be a little bit structured about talking, making, and then talking about games, and talking about making games, and talking about playing games. Because this is a podcast, and you can't physically play games. Or we could, but that'd be a different issue. But yeah, like I just this is nice. It's spring outside, guys. How do you feel about the weather?
Oh, it is lovely outside. I love how much it's been raining. I just love the rain so much.
Me too. I have a quick question for you, actually. Would you consider yourself a multitasker?
Yes.
Okay, like it started raining a few days ago, right? And I was outside, and I think it rained like 2 days in a row consistently for the entire day. And on the second day, I went for a walk to kind of just get some fresh air. It was drizzling a little bit, and all I saw on the sidewalk was just a bunch of different worms. The worms are coming out naturally because their soul was getting clogged up with water, and they were all over the sidewalk. And so I found myself just like really focusing and zoning in on avoiding the worms because they were like everywhere on the sidewalk. So I was like playing a game with myself. I was just like the floor is lava, but don't step on the earthworm game, you know.
I mean, I think that's generally good advice.
Yeah, but like the thing is, like while I was doing this game, I was so focused on the game that I couldn't think about my environment, and so I just ran into a tree. It's kind of how my walk ended with me and my butt on the floor. It was all wet, and there were probably earthworms at my butt crack.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was wondering if you guys are as bad at multitasking as I am, because I tend to only focus on one thing and then I can't pay attention to things that externally.
You know, I like to think I'm good at multitasking, but I think everyone thinks that.
Yeah, it's probably the same for me. I try doing too many things and it all just falls apart after a while.
I think it's one of the. It's one. I think I remember seeing a study that was done. I don't know how true the study is, but I remember reading the paper that proposed the idea, or I think the hypothesis was that women are better at multitasking than men are. And I don't remember how old this was, but it was a very long time ago. I was working at a research lab, and it was just like this topic came up, and I started to look into it. I don't know. It was interesting. I don't know how valid it is. Probably is fairly valid. The women I know in my life are very good at multitasking. So I was like, I don't know. From observation, it seems legit. Anyway, the first thing I kind of wanted to get back on track with is we're literally 2 minutes in. We're already off track. This is gonna be great.
It's good progress.
It's good progress. The thing I want to talk about real quick was this event called Smashing COVID that happened last weekend, which was 2 days ago. So, for the record, don't know if you know what Smashing COVID is. Were you guys tuning into the streams?
I didn't tune into the streams, but I was following like all you guys talking about it. Basically, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a fighting game tournament for charity.
Yeah. So the Edmonton fighting game community organized this with the help of Memory Express, where they basically went ahead and did a bunch of different tournaments for different games. So we had like Dragon Ball Fighter Z, we had like Tekken 7, Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, all these other fighting games that are out there. And people playing these fighting games in different tournaments, and there were 3 parallel streams. And on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, different games were being played at any point. There was Smash, of course, Melee, and Ultimate. So the cool thing about this is that they had a goal of 5K to beat for Extra Life charity, and just with the streaming alone, they crushed 6.6K by the end of the the weekend. And then Memory Express donated some money to make it 10K total to charity, which is huge, right?
Yeah.
And I was reminded during that weekend, like, how awesome the Edmonton fighting community is.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's ridiculously good, and I was reminded that there are some really top tier players that come out of our community that we don't even, like, a lot of people don't even know about it, right? It's only the FGC people who know about, like, the FGC people. So those of us on the outside who aren't really that involved in the community are like, holy, we skipped out on all this insane stuff. Like, the top players in, like, I don't know, Samurai Showdown or like other games, like they all come from some of them have come from Edmonton, and I think that's noteworthy. Like, we have some top esports people here coming out of Edmonton that aren't talked about enough, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty
It really is insane.
I was just thinking about the idea that we should definitely bring in like some of the FGC people to talk on the podcast at some point, because I think that'd be pretty fun.
Well, I mean, like,
Talk
some
some
of
perspective.
our Games Den members were participating, weren't they?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I think, yeah, we had a couple of people that made it to top 8,
Yeah.
and I think one of them made it to top 4 as well. I think Omer made it to top 4 for Grand Blue, and top 8 for Uniclear. I don't remember which other game he played, but
Oh yeah, it was Under Night.
Internet, yeah. But Juan made it to top 8 for Dragon Ball, which, by the way, I watched the entirety of Dragon Ball, and man, it was heated up. And after the tournament ended, I was like, I need to go play Dragon Ball. You know, like, it's one of those moments where, like, every single match he had was just like on fire. It was a very tense back and forth, and it kind of gave me an appreciation for fighting games even deeper. It's been growing on me for the past year. I started playing fighting games with Tekken 7, and now I'm getting into Dragon Ball. But I never was into fighting games as a kid. I used to hate fighting games as a kid. But then as I started kind of learning more about fighting games through those 2 people specifically, I was kind of introduced to the chess of fighting games, and like the amount of cognitive, like, selection that needs to go into reducing the amount of stuff thinking about, and just focusing on the inputs, or focusing on the macro level strategy, which is the inputs. Is a better way to put it.
Because I know
It's like-
when I'm playing Smash, I'll be doing real good, and then, like, I'll get hit once, and my brain just goes into a panic. And suddenly, no combos, no nothing, just mashing buttons.
I think everyone has done that at some point. I think mashing is like the ultimate fighting game meme. It's like, look at this one player who's like thinking about every single move that they can possibly do, and there's one player in the other corner just like pressing buttons and then getting stuff off, and then everyone's like, what's going on? I think one of the funniest things I've seen happen in fighting game commentary is where one player is mashing buttons, and then other players are really thoughtful about, like, I don't know, getting the person in the corner or whatever else it is, or making them block a lot, whatever it is. But the player that's mashing somehow gets some kind of insane move off for some reason, And all the commentators are like, "Oh my god, we didn't think about this as a possibility." And that's why I was just mashing buttons, man. I don't know. Like, it's funny. I enjoy fighting games now. I wanted to share that just quickly with you guys. It's really awesome to be able to raise so much money with Smashing COVID, and the community was able to do that. We had commentators from like all across the world too.
Ooh.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, other than fighting game stuff, I was really curious to hear your thoughts. What's another different topic and a different tangent? PS5 and the Xbox Series X.
Ooh, yeah.
Shashank, I know you have some thoughts about this that I talked about for a brief moment of time.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up with PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 1. I don't think I've ever actually played an Xbox in my life. As silly as that sounds. But looking at both of their specs, because obviously we can't see like, oh, this system has this kind of quality of games. We don't have that yet. It's not out. But just looking at specs, it's a close match.
Close match for both of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have any opinion about like the specs themselves? Like, because I have a lot to talk about what this means for the future of the industry.
It's getting very, very close to, and I'm gonna sound like such a PCMR here, but it's getting close to PC levels with something that sits on your plugged into your TV, right?
Yeah. One shower thought I did have was that this is going to basically people who don't have like highly built like custom PCs with great graphics cards and stuff like that is like, once you get this console, you're basically gonna have that in your living room now or in your table, right? Yeah. Because like, I just want to look at the stats here real quick, the specs real quick, stats. But this is pretty crazy, right? Because you have you have 8 Zen 2 cores at 3.5 gigahertz. You have like an RDNA architecture GPU with 10.28 teraflops and 36 CUDA cores. 16 gigs of RAM at GDDR6, right? And you have, I think the biggest thing that they kind of push towards is an SSD for storage.
Yeah.
And this means a lot. This means a lot for consoles. Because I remember at the Sony conference or the Sony release that they did, the press release that they did, where they're supposed to talk about games, but instead talked about the PS5, and no one really enjoyed that. But people who were techies like us, like, kind of flopped towards the specificities, and we were like, oh shit, this like is pretty important, because now you can literally run multiple different games simultaneously and allocate resources where you require them to be, which is huge. I remember Insomniac Games was talking about it in a different podcast about how, what was the GDC talk? I think it was GDC talk about how they kind of did their rendering of the entire city of Manhattan, right? And they talked about the difficulties and challenges of that. All that problem they had could potentially go away because of the fast loading and the quick cache that they have with SSDs.
Yeah.
So that's pretty big.
I remember reading one Reddit comment, which was, Sony is now just a PC case manufacturer.
I kind of like that, actually. I think this is where PC Master Race people can just walk in and be like, "Yo, we got this." We've had this for a while now.
Right. I think that is the goal of consoles, though. It's eventually, like, they want to be as high performance as possible, but really they want the seamless experience. They want it to be accessible to anybody.
Yeah.
And the closer it is to a PC while still maintaining their UI and the accessibility, I think that's great, and they keep working towards that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that's the console experience. That's what they're really selling. Is like, oh, if you really want to get an Xbox Series X, get ready for another tile UI display, like the Windows 8 tablet mode or whatever else it was, right? Like,
Yeah.
and if you really want the PS kind of experience, get ready for that same like wavy backgrounds and streamlined, clean kind of platforming. With the UI elements. I think you're right. I think it's the sound like the PlayStation experience, and I think a lot of this comes down to the kinds of games you'll find on the consoles. And we talk about exclusives in a bit. I think that's really important. But I kind of wanted to touch upon the fact that I think this is going to be the last console generation to really make a leap in any direction.
Right.
Because at this point we're reaching the near end of graphical fidelity, right? We all saw the Unreal Engine 5 video.
It's insane.
Test video. It's insane. Like, at this point, I don't know how much farther we can go from here in terms of fidelity, graphical fidelity.
Yeah.
But
how many more triangles can we fit?
Apparently a lot.
I made a tweet about. I made multiple tweets about that actually. But yeah, like at this point, the graphics race is basically over.
Yeah.
With the looks of these console generation, what does this mean for the industry going forward?
I think we might see a shift closer to maybe what Nintendo's doing. Like, they've never been interested in highest quality graphics. They're more into creating experiences. Right?
Yeah, Nintendo, they like to go in a different direction than, say, Xbox or PS4. They innovate just like the others, but they do it in a completely different fashion. They don't worry about their technicalities, like you said. They worry about how is this going to feel in the hands of a player? What new thing can we do here that hasn't been done before? You know, the Switch is simultaneously a mobile platform and something you can just set up on your TV.
Yeah.
And they've, the Wii, the motion controls there were, although strange and not always amazing, they were unique, and they set themselves up in a niche there, which was very interesting to see.
Most selling console ever, right? It's crazy. Or until the Switch beat it, I think. But at the same time, like, you know what the most cursed thing I want is? The most...
Let's hear it.
The most cursed thing I want is a new Virtual Boy.
Oh.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that if Nintendo plays into the VR market right now, it would be great for the VR and AR industry. Test to Olympic player kind of joined the fold. But I just want to see them make a Virtual Boy 2.0. I think that they're ahead of the curve, like way ahead of the curve when they made Virtual Boy.
Maybe a little too ahead of the curve.
A little bit too ahead of the curve. But I'm interested to see their take on it now that we have somewhat decent standards and industry standards for the way you want to develop for AR and VR, right?
Yeah.
It's still a very undiscovered frontier, but
yeah.
Because I mean, the Switch, when they were doing all their patents and stuff, it was originally designed with VR in mind, right?
Was it?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was.
They had those patents for like a thing that you'd put the Switch into to do VR, and I guess we got that in Labo, but like they haven't really touched on it very much.
Part of me thinks the Labo was the extent of that. I think.
Yeah.
Well, I do think, like, again, they're going in different directions. I think Labo was really interesting to see.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of people ragged on it for being, you're just selling cardboard, but it was a unique way to sell cardboard, to say the least.
Yeah.
They had a lot of cool things going there.
Yeah.
It created an experience, because and I guess this kind of goes into Make a little bit, but with Labo, with Breath of the Wild, what they're really designing is a tool set that they can build off of. That's the great thing about the Joy-Cons and the Switch itself. You can put it into a bunch of different things and it will function. Look at Ring Fit Adventure, right?
Yeah.
I think Ring Fit is, by the way, when I was writing my thesis, like, this is kind of, I touched on this a little bit, but anyway, side tangent is that Ring Fit Adventure and the use of Joy-Cons, particularly Joy-Cons, I think they are they haven't been tapped into their full potential yet. I think Ring Fit does a great job of that, and that's one of the exclusives. I think that the Joy-Cons, like, you know, when they demoed the Joy-Cons at first, they had that demo where they were like you could feel the ice cubes in a glass, right? Like you could feel that in the Joy-Con with the HD Rumble. Like not enough games have taken advantage of the fact that you have so many different motors, like, and so many different like sensors in the Joy-Con itself, with the IR sensor or whatever else it is, right? Like there hasn't been enough exploitation of that, and I feel there's so much potential in that in terms of innovation and game design.
Touch feedback in games has been like very underdeveloped. Like most PS4 and the Xbox, they just go for vibration, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But going for actual proper tactile feedback, there's this controller called the Novant Falcon that did something similar to that.
I googled this whole
and it was very interesting. It was it acted as a mouse, but you move your hand in a 3D space, and say, you know, you're playing Half-Life with it. You pick up a barrel and you push against a wall, and the mouse will start pushing back instead of just letting you go all the way forward.
Oh. Okay.
And it was it never went anywhere.
Yeah.
It was not popular at all because neither of you have heard of it, but it was very interesting, and I think I'd like to see more of that. More
it looks like a
tactile feedback.
It looks like a prototype portal gun.
Yeah.
But you're right. No, that's fascinating. Again, I think they're a bit too ahead of the curve.
Yeah, absolutely.
This kind of brings me then back to the PS5, which is, if you have all these tools at your disposal, learning how to use them comes with learning curve, right? So when you look at something like the Switch, it's notoriously tougher to develop for than something like the PS4, which is arguably getting very close to just developing for the PC, right? Especially with what the PS5's architecture is based off. So,
and I think that PlayStation touched on this during their press releases, that like the PS3 was a nightmare to develop for, right?
Yeah.
So with the PS4 and PS5, they want to make it even easier for developers to work on the console, and that's their onboarding for developers, basically.
Yeah.
I agree. Nintendo's always been a little bit harder to develop for generally. The 3DS had its own quirks and issues, right? And now the Switch as well. But the Switch still uses a Tegra GPU.
Yep.
And hopefully the next version of the Switch, which should probably come out next year, I'm assuming, or will be announced this year, is probably going to have an upgraded version of that. In some capacity. So, like, the Switch as a console to develop for is always going to be, from what I understand, like, we have a few developers here in Edmonton and Alberta who have ported it onto Switch. When I was in conversation with them during Game Camp or whatever else it was, like, they had brought up the fact that porting to Switch, like, Nintendo works pretty closely with you in that sense. They give you a kit and stuff to kind of port over with, and that's an entire process, and that's why publishers take care of that sometimes, depending on your deal. But I'm almost on the side of, now that the PS5, like you said, is getting closer to develop for, like it is for PC, or for like just a general Windows or UWP platform, whatever else it is, like, it's gonna be, you're gonna start seeing more consoles or more innovations in that space that lend themselves to developing for unique situations, if that makes sense. It's not just going to be like, here's a console that you use a normal DualShock for. Right. I'm almost expecting it to be in the direction of, here's a cool device that could be used with a DualShock, but if you really want to experience it, like as a holistic experience, you have to develop for this specific niche that is, whatever it's going to be. Like with the Switch is like, here's a bunch of accessibility problems you're going to have with the Switch. Like, here's design for that, right? Here's a controller that is very specific, like the Falcon that have been brought up. Maybe you can bring that back now with new technology. I don't know. But I think that the future of the console market is going to be definitely more in those niches than it is with the universal console at this point.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say for general trend.
I just wanted to quickly talk about one other thing regarding the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. And that is the one thing that kind of separates it for me from just getting a... Like, the only reason I'd consider getting a PS5 and not just building my own PC, right? And the one thing is, it's the price point.
Right.
And I want to hear your thoughts on the price point for this next generation of consoles, considering all the improvements technically that they're going to have.
Did they announce it?
I don't think they formally announced it, but I think the expected one is like 600 CAD, Canadian dollars.
Mm.
I don't fully recall. I don't remember seeing this. I'm Googling it right now. I don't see it kind of popping up. The only estimates that are up in the net right now, as far as I can tell.
Right. Well, if it's around 600 CAD, I mean, I just upgraded my PC's CPU, RAM, and processor, and that set me back like $400, right?
Yep.
Add on a GPU and an SSD, power supply, roughly 700 around there.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when I first built my PC, which was years ago, to be fair, it cost me around 800 for the tower itself, and then with all the peripherals, it came out to, almost 1,000.
Yeah.
So these next consoles being around 600 CAD, that I'm not sure that'd be worth it for me personally, because I feel like it's only hop skipping away from just building a PC at that point.
Right.
It also comes down to accessibility. And do you want a PC, or whoever wants a PC, or do they just want something they can play games on and not have to worry about file management or whatever else?
Yeah. I think the other thing is like exclusives, right? Like console exclusives that we said we talked about afterwards as well. Which I think is the biggest selling point for consoles of that sort. Is like,
absolutely,
can you play Horizon, the second game of Horizon Zero Dawn, right? Like sequel. Which I think has been said that it'll be. I'm by the way looking at this right now, and Play and Trade Vancouver has listed the PS5 on their website for $559 CAD, which is roughly $600 CAD. But that's a lot of money, man. Like I have a PS4 Slim, which I got off Kijiji for $200 secondhand.
Nice.
So like, for me, like that's a $400. Like kind of updraft from there. Talking about version exclusives, like what do you think the Xbox has going for it other than Gears of War and Halo, that and even that Halo's on PC now, but that the PS4 has on it, or that it has on the PS4 rather?
See, for me at least, I don't know what sort of version or like console exclusives there are that would convince me to get one over the other. It's more so, for me at least, what games I can't get on PC that I'd rather get a console for.
What kind of games would that be for you, personally?
Surprisingly enough, Kingdom Hearts 3. That is the one reason I would buy a PS4.
Oh dear. Did I tell you about how I sunk $120 to get the entire Kingdom Hearts collection, but I didn't get the one?
Oh no.
I couldn't finish the game, man. There's one boss fight, it's just too hard for me, and I couldn't get the controls right. It's just like, it feels so floaty, and I'm like, I'm not grounded on the... Like, man, I have my issues with Kingdom Hearts. The design, it's a big oof in my opinion, but...
It's a definitely very floaty game.
Damn. What Xbox has been doing though, it's been like making a lot of deals with studios around the world. For example, with Double Fine, which means the new Psychonauts game is going to be probably an Xbox exclusive for a while. So some Double Fine game probably exclusive for Xbox. So like in that sense, are there any games that like Xbox indies or you know, games like Gears of War that you would get an Xbox for?
Personally, I don't think so. I feel PC has a diverse enough indie market that I'm able to feel happy here. I will say, if someone didn't have a PC and they're trying to decide between Xbox, PS4, I think the Xbox is a lot stronger at that point because they have a lot of games that PC has, like the Ori series and anything else on the Microsoft Game Store. It becomes a lot more powerful of a purchase when you consider that.
That's an interesting point. Yeah. I still think personally though that the PS5 is probably a better choice because of the strong lineup that they have with Insomniac, with all the PlayStation studios that are there, like Santa Monica Studios, they make God of War, and then you have like Insomniac made Spider-Man, and then you have like Naughty Dog made Last of Us and Uncharted, right? So
PlayStation definitely has a very good lineup. You can't get anywhere else. Yeah.
They're not that strong in the indie scene, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But would you prefer a stronger AAA scene or a more indie kind of outlook on things when you're buying a console or a PC?
I think right now, Nintendo's kind of got that the indie corner of the console market. Because the Switch is incredible for indie games right now, right?
I agree.
So maybe having those AAA titles would be the main selling point, because you talked about Gears of War, right? That is AAA through and through, right? So looking at something like PS4, Spider-Man, God of War, all that stuff, that is what I think of when I think of the PS4. And when I think of Xbox One, I don't really know.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know the marketing flop that was the Xbox One, where they were like, here is your entire entertainment system all in one box. And everyone's like, we just wanted a fucking gaming console, man. you know? That'll be a meme forever, in my opinion. But like the interesting thing for me about the Switch is that while Nintendo have been playing their own game, they've been winning at their own game. Like they wanted nothing to do with the competition in that sense. Like even though they are direct competitors, Sony and Microsoft both. I'm not kind of Stadia anymore because Stadia isn't really much, if anything, at this point. But like the fact that Sony and Microsoft have made such an effort to try and compete with the Switch in terms of sales, or maybe they're playing their own game, I don't know. But like Nintendo have just been in their own corner being like, we know we have this entire audience captivated, and we know that all these people are going to come for our IPs. They're going to come for the experience that we offer, like you said, Shashank, earlier, about them always thinking kind of outside the box in terms of what kind of experience they want to deliver.
Yeah.
For them, it's not a race for AAA. For them, it's not a race for fidelity, for graphical fidelity, right? For them, it's I think Nintendo has always had a much deeper appreciation for design and for gameplay than Microsoft has or that Sony has, in my honest opinion. Like, I have always cherished Nintendo, and it is a dream. It has been a dream of mine since I was 12 years old to work at Nintendo as a game designer.
Yeah.
And that still in the back of my mind somewhere. But like, I think it's fast. What Nintendo does so well is that they understand the value of good gameplay, like truly deep gameplay. And it can be seen in their IPs, right? Like, it can be seen in Breath of the Wild. It can be seen in Odyssey.
Even beyond that, it can be seen in literally their consoles. When they were designing the Famicom, the plunger to take games out, right? They are
Yeah.
a toy company first and foremost.
Yeah, I think it started out as a card company.
Yeah.
They started out as a card company. They made trading cards, I think.
Yeah.
Those and tops. It was pretty
Yep.
good. There's this book by the way called Super Mario Brothers, which kind of goes with the history of Mario and Nintendo, and I highly recommend that read. It's very very good.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Nintendo, since they've been playing their own game, they've been winning at their own game so hard. I just want to talk about Switch sales for a moment because this blows my mind when I look at this. But this console has taken like the entire. When it first was revealed, I was like, yeah, that's Nintendo, right? Out of left field, King's left field, like they just come out of nowhere with this weird console that is like a hybrid, and I'm like, at first, I'll be honest, my thoughts were like, being ambivalent to the home or handheld market, is that a good play? Because you're already winning the handheld market. You've already won the handheld market, right, with the 3DS. That's the biggest selling handheld console in history. So like, I mean, if you're already winning that war, do you really want to make that hybrid plunge? Like, is that something that you will? I thought it was a gamble personally. So I just kind of want to. I just want to talk about Nintendo Switch unit sales worldwide on Statista.com. And all right, this graph is ridiculous, right? March 2020, it's 55.77, I'm assuming million, probably.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's ridiculous. It paid off.
Definitely
off.
did. Especially after what the Wii U did.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, that's a good point, is coming off of the Wii U, gambling on something like the Switch, that makes it feel like even more of a bold decision.
Yeah.
but like, how much of it do you think was a gamble? That's what it felt like to me.
I think
It-
they saw the success that the DS was, and to an extent the 3DS was, and they were just like, we need to reignite our home console market.
Because of the
think,
failure of the Wii U?
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's only as successful as it is because of how seamless it is going from home console to mobile with the Switch. Like, it's really just a plug and play thing, right?
I think the Wii U was a stepping stone. I think they took a risk. I think the Wii U was their first attempt at like touching, kind of poking at the hybrid market, you know, because the Wii U like was a plastic tablet basically, with the gamepad, right? So they were like poking at the hornet's nest, being like, "Hey, are you guys cool if we like put games just on this tablet? And like, will you be fine with that?" And people were like, "No, we don't want any for half-assedry. Like, we want you either." I think that was kind of the test run, the Wii U, where they were like, they're poking at the hornet's nest, and the hornets are like, you either go all in or you stay out. You know, you don't stay halfway in there. But I think that's what the Wii U really was, and I really respect Nintendo for thinking that way. I have massive respect for that company. Like, they do so many things right. Although they've done their online wrong the entire time, and they still think it wrong to this date.
They're several years behind in technology. It's fine. We'll get there eventually on like the Switch 3.
Another interesting topic to talk about is like, why is Nintendo so behind technology? Do you not think that they can innovate and also be ahead of technology at the same time? Like, what's holding them back?
I think they're kind of like Apple. They wait for everyone else to take care of it first, and then they do their version.
Yeah, they really are just behind. Like, if we consider the Evo announcement for the upcoming Evo, Smash Ultimate is not there because of how bad the netcode is there. And there's no reason for it to be that bad other than Nintendo's just not putting in the resources. And I don't know if that comes down to a cultural thing with the higher ups there, if they just don't understand the need for it. It's like, they introduced that phone app where you can talk to people instead of just using a built-in voice, and it just doesn't work. You know, way too behind.
Yeah.
And this is where
From my
I'm conflicted about Nintendo.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of area I'm conflicted about Nintendo, because that says a lot about the culture of the company, but not just that, but more like what their priorities are in terms of design. Because if in an online game or like in a party game like Smash, which I still hesitate to call a fighting game, like is Smash, the priorities of Smash was to create this awesome experience, right, with great characters, a lot of characters, stages, the backgrounds are amazing, the audio is great, they have an entire music library, right? There's so many things right, but then when it comes to the online play, which like people might not always have someone to play with in their house, right? When it comes to Smash, so like when you're playing online, and a big part of online games, fighting games, party games is like being able to connect with people online and play flawlessly over the internet. And like you would assume that would have been an integral and important feature for a game like Smash Brothers. And this is not the first Smash, this is the fifth Smash Brother game, right? Like, I'm very confused as to why the netcode is so bad. Is it just an execution problem, or was it a problem with the priority?
If I had to guess, I'd say it's a priority for them, and it's just not high up for whatever reason. They don't see the point.
Something like Smash Bros. Or Splatoon, even, which is entirely online.
Yeah.
Right? And that game has its issues. It runs like stuff from like a decade ago.
That's interesting. That's always conflicted me about Nintendo. It's just their ideology, methodology when it comes to implementing integral features.
Yeah.
Like that, right?
Yeah.
And Nintendo Online's a garbage service. Like everyone kind of agrees unanimously about that. And there's so many different ways it can be improved, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure Reddit has a lot to say about that. But like, yeah, I love what Nintendo does with its consoles and its games and its gameplay. I think that it handles accessibility and features in the wrong way. And I think they have been doing that since the very beginning.
Okay. So, I think that when it comes to their online play, whenever they're lacking something, their community kind of makes up for it. Because you'll look at what you're currently doing at the time of this recording with a Nuzlocke race, right? That is not a feature built into the game, both Nuzlockes and online racing. But the community has made these rule sets and said, this is what we want to do. Here's how we're going to do it with the tools that we're presented with.
That's a great segue into the next point, which is talking about the Nuzlockes and Emergent Pokemon. So I know you've been playing Pokemon, Shashank, recently.
Yeah.
How have you been experiencing the Pokemon series?
I played through Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Sky. I played Darkness when I was like 12, probably younger actually, and I loved it. Right, and playing through it again. That story, man. Even if you know what's gonna happen, it still hits you.
Yeah. Explorers of the Sky is one of my favorite Pokemon games, even if it isn't main series.
Yeah.
They just do it all right.
I'm playing through Pokemon White 2 right now. And it's a tough game. It is quite a bit more difficult than even like, because I started out with Gen 1 and Gen 3, right?
Yeah.
Like Fire Red and Emerald.
Yeah, that was me too.
Those games had their difficulties, but I think that came about more from, I guess, a lack of options.
Interesting. Yeah, I think just lack of, like, when you're designing for the Game Boy, that's an entire different subset of problems than designing for the DS.
Yeah.
and for that console specifically. So one thing I think I did come across when talking about Pokemon is the fact that we're playing these games with different rule sets than they're originally designed to do, and that's something that kind of comes down to emergence, right, and the concept of emergence. And I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. Now, that the concept of emergence kind of was coded by a computing scientist quite a long time ago. But it's specifically extremely valuable to talk about now with games, and it's specifically because just to kind of highlight what emergence actually is, and to get it right, is that when we talk about emergence, we're talking about it's systems theory, right? It's kind of talking about things that are unplanned, things that happen in a game or in a system that are unexpected, that aren't designed for within the constraint of the rules necessarily, but come about as a modification of the people who are experiencing the rules, by those people who are experiencing the rules. So yeah, stuff like in Breath of the Wild, where you have a physics, the rules are the physics system, right? The way you handle the physics systems. And then the most popular kind of example of emergent gameplay is speedrunning, where people just like hop on a boulder with potato stasis and jump on top of it and get flung all the way to Hyrule Castle, right? Like, that's emergent gameplay. Talking about the way Portal was cleared in like 46 seconds. I forget what it was.
Yeah.
Something ridiculous like that. Speedrunning is one of those popular examples. So when it comes to stuff like Pokemon, I think one of the complaints people have with Pokemon is that it's an easy game. There isn't much of a challenge. Of course, Pokemon has always been and always will be catered towards kids. And so, as a kid, personally, I found Emerald to be a very challenging game, and I had a lot of fun with it. I put thousands of hours in that game. But now people are playing Nuzlocke challenges, which is a modified version of the game, where any Pokemon that faints is permanently considered to be dead. And you cannot use them ever again in the game. And you only catch one Pokemon per route, with additional rules that kind of go along. So yeah, I've been playing Nuzlocke challenges and with Omer, and I've been my death toll is 6. I'm playing Heart Gold, and he's playing Soul Silver, and my death count is already up to 6 or 7 now. I think I've lost a Pokemon at every gym battle, except Whitney, surprisingly enough. The famous Milk Tank, man. Yeah, I grinded a neat arena, like in the grass for like 2 sessions straight, and then she just double kicked the hell out of that Milk Tank. But yeah, like it was. I think that was the most interesting thing about the emergence, is that it's a different take on a game that's already been created by the designers, and then kind of twisting it in a way that is unexpected, or that kind of comes from the rules. A lot of theory. I mean, there's a very well-cited paper on this called the MDA framework. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. So it stands for Mechanics, Dynamics, Aesthetics, and it talks about how a game is designed from a perspective of that framework. It's not a perfect framework. It's pretty good. It's cited a lot, but it's not perfect or anything. It's a lot of missing pieces, but it's very broad. So it kind of talks about how there's mechanics of the game, and then from those mechanics comes dynamics. So the way you experience the mechanics and the kind of outcomes they lead to are dynamics, and then what those dynamics make the player like feel emotionally are the aesthetics of that game. And that's kind of the MDA framework. And so emergence kind of happens at the dynamic stage, where the interpretation from dynamics to aesthetics is very much different than what the designers had intended or probably had in mind while designing the game. And I kind of wanted to ask you guys about this a little bit. Like, what are some emergent kind of experiences you've had about playing a game that the designers definitely didn't plan out, or probably didn't plan out, probably left space to plan out if they're smart. And so they, I just want to hear your experiences with emergent gameplay and kind of games that have led you down that path.
Have you ever seen on YouTube VG Mitts?
No.
So this dude, basically what he does is he imposes these really stupid challenges when he's playing through a game. Like, can you beat Hat of Time without jumping?
Oh yeah.
And it completely changes how you approach any given challenge in the game. Certain things that are just like, yeah, you just jump across this in the tutorial, suddenly become they're a puzzle in themselves. How do I solve this? Right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, the self-imposed challenges, like, it really changes everything. Like, it's the same as a Nuzlocke, right? It really, it, I don't want to word this. It makes the game your own more than what the designers were intending, and it's something really interesting to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a cool side effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some emergence I found recently is I recently played through Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and that game introduced a much more robust combat system, where you were given different weapons, and these different weapons had different effects on the player momentum. You know, you might slow down in the air, or you might shift more to the left or the right, depending on where you swing. And in the beginning of the game, they give you a torch, which is a temporary weapon that you only have for like what's supposed to be 20 minutes. And that torch has different mechanics attached to it than any other weapon. And within 5 minutes of handling the torch, I figured out you can essentially fly with it. And I managed to skip a few mini bosses in the intro sequence, just by using a torch for platforming rather than combat. And it was kind of entertaining to see how the game handled that.
Yeah.
Did that game handle that poorly, or did they kind of expect it to happen in a sense?
Nothing broke, which I suppose is the ideal situation there. I tested it later, and I was able to go back to where that mini boss was and enter that arena. And yeah, the boss spawned, and you could see where they intended you to go, and the path the boss was in front of an upgrade, and I just ended up passing the boss and grabbing the upgrade and leaving. But I went back and checked out the boss, and they were still there. I was still able to fight them. Nothing really happened. Like, it wasn't a story important boss. It's just, it's one of those test bosses to make sure you understand the mechanics, and apparently I understood the mechanics in a different way than they were intending. So
that's really cool, actually. That's actually really neat. I'm glad they were able to accommodate for that somehow in the mechanics. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. One thing I actually did want to talk about is when you're generally talking about like designing for Emergence. Have you guys ever seen like any game jam games that kind of do that?
I have actually, and I think it was at some GDQ. They pulled out this game that was created specifically for the intent of speedrunning, any percent.
Oh.
So, they would design in certain like features and test them out in really weird ways. They'd essentially just hand this toolkit over to speedrunners and say, have fun. Try out everything. And if they saw someone using it in some obscure way that allowed them to skip something, they would enable that, right?
Right.
That's really interesting.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts then, like when you're under a constraint of 48 hours, let's assume 48 hours to create a game. Do you think about a lot of these things? Do you think about Emergence? Do you think about stuff like no, not at all?
No. Personally, in my experience, I've been trying to always make like a single, or I find like one design and I try to make a single experience for someone. Yeah. And I don't think about how they are going to try to break that.
I think it's broken when it's shipped usually. So it's like,
yeah.
Do you really want them to break it even further? I don't know.
Yeah.
Something that's really interesting is that I think like games that come out of game jams, there have been a few of them that have seen some good success. Celeste is an example of that. It does made Pico 8. But I'm actually curious. We just recently had a game jam earlier this month that we helped organize. I was kind of curious to hear perspective from organizers of the game jam. Like, what did you find to be the case? How was organizing a game jam? What are the pain points of organizing a game jam?
I think it was a lot of it came down to helping people, giving them the right direction to go.
What does it look like to you?
A lot of it was just sort of like answering questions, fostering people to help each other out. Because at the end of the day, a lot of game jams aren't competitions; they are collaborations. If anything, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
How about you, Evan?
I don't know about. I guess the nature of the game jam is you don't know what it's going to look like by the end. And for me, I love to have everything planned out. I like to know exactly what something's going to look like before it ever happens. So going into the presentation phase of a game jam without being able to have proper time to check out all these games, that was an interesting point. Led to a lot of improv on my end. I also think running a game from an organizer perspective, or a game jam from an organizer perspective, was awesome because I was so proud of everyone there. Because I was poking in all their different chats, and it was very entertaining to see people iterate and actually plan things out. Is wonderful as a spectator, actually.
Yeah, I would agree. That's something that just always gets me whenever I'm running a game jam of the sort.
Yep.
I just wanted to quickly share an experience from Global Game Jam that I think kind of echoed that, and it's also kind of targets the Emergent part a little bit as well. There was a game that was some pseudo procedural in nature, in the sense that I don't know if you guys were there Global Game Jam presentation, but when I was organizing it, there was a team of 3 or 4 people that were making like a turn-based battle system, a rock paper scissors battle system, basically.
I remember that one.
That had a really awesome aesthetic, visual aesthetic, of like drawings on paper, but it was like calligraphic drawings on paper almost. If that makes sense. And you would just walk around this fog covered map, and as you moved, you would uncover parts of the map, right? And the fog would kind of dissipate around you, and then randomly you would encounter something like Final Fantasy 1 or 2. You just walk around and encounter something as you move around the map, and one of the things that happened was that it was procedural in nature, that you would uncover a landmark, from a set of landmarks, you would uncover a landmark, and the narrator would say something. And there's a 0.001% chance for them to uncover what they did. And the way it ended up happening is that I think it was a village or a mountain. Evan, do you remember?
I think it was a mountain.
I think it was a village.
I'm trying to find a Twitter thread.
The Twitter thread. That's right.
Yeah. In the distance was a cottage of some sort.
That's the one. So they walk past a landmark cottage, and the narrator is like, in the distance, there was a cottage of some sort. And then they walk another 2 seconds. In the distance, there's a cottage of some sort. Another 2 seconds. Yeah. In the distance, there's a village of some sort. And I kept going for like 4 times. Everyone was like laughing, breaking down in the presentation room. 5 times, everyone was breaking down even further. And then 6 times, everyone was like, holy shit, this is nuts. And it was just made for this hilarious Emergent moment where everyone just kind of enjoyed that on the screen. And I was like, that's a cool game jam game.
That was amazing.
Yeah, that was really fun. I love I love it when you use. I've investigated PCG a bunch this last semester, and so I'm always fascinated when people interpret randomness in their design differently, and I think the way they interpreted it in that game jam was pretty sick. But anyway, yeah. So talking about game jams, it's like, what are some of the coolest games you guys have seen coming out of game jams?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Running the game jam. I love all my children equally.
That's a nice way to evade the question.
Yep.
But like, look, I played through all the games with my mom afterward.
Oh, that's sweet.
Just seeing what was made in what was essentially no time for me running it. I'm sure it seemed a lot longer to you guys participating. Right? It was really incredible to see. Just
Did you have a favorite?
really putting me on the spot here, huh?
That's my job.
I don't think I can pick one favorite.
Can you pick two? I'm really coming at you, Shashank.
Choose the favorite of your children.
You need to answer this question.
I loved the aesthetic and the music that Comfort Zone made.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we're rocking that musical intro from Eric, who did the music for that game.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still a nice way to evade the question, but that was a good call out. Very interesting. Yeah. No, that game was really good because of the mechanics. I think the mechanics were really simple and it just worked. Because like really, in terms of mechanics, what they have is time constraint. So they have a player have 60 seconds, I think, 60 seconds to move
Something
around
like that, yeah.
a singular floor and to collect pieces and bring them back before you die, as the wording said. Stay in the comfort zone for too long and you die. I'm not sure.
I remember
the messaging, but
it took a long time and a lot of effort for them to implement their inventory system because that's that tile based on the size of the item, and that was really impressive for a game jam game. Building that from scratch with no previous framework or anything is really cool to see.
Yeah, it was like literally like an interesting inventory Tetris mini game that they had as their main mechanic. Yeah, that was really sick. How about you, Evan? What's the coolest game you've seen in a game jam?
Oh, I don't know about coolest.
Okay, most interesting, most curiosity piquing.
I will say, from the McEwen Game Jam last year, Soulwork. That game was super impressive. I can't believe they made that in 48 hours. Even just the pause menu, like they thought it all out, and the mechanics were actually dynamic and interesting. You could tell there's a lot you can do with that mechanic.
Do you want to talk about the mechanic real quick? Like, what was it? Like, how did it work?
Yeah, so from my memory, which is not the best thing in the world, the player character was able to create some sort of echo of themselves, like their soul, and leave it in a place. And if they chose, they could combine their soul and their body again. After, you can move around with your body after placing your soul, and they'd sling together and you'd have momentum with whatever you're doing. So if you want to get over a platform, you jump up, leave your soul in the air, and then combine yourselves to sling yourself upwards over a platform. And that was a really dynamic mechanic. And I'd love to see more come out of that, really.
Yeah, I think it was super innovative because like they took the regular jump that we all know and love, and they just like made it, instead of giving you a double jump, they just let you freeze time for a moment, let your soul wander effectively, and then sling it, just literally yeet it back into your body. And then because the force
was really cool.
of your soul yeeting back into your body, you would go a distance. And I was like, that is amazing. I don't know, I've never thought about that.
I think to highlight a game made at the Out of Hibernation Game Jam, something much more recent, Biggie Fissy, that game had a lot in it. That was really impressive. Like, just the amount of art and the amount of different mechanics they put in. Like, they had an entire economy system in a store with 8 or 10 different items, and they all did different things. It was really cool. It's hard to make a completed game in a game jam, and that game felt very complete.
I think people underestimate how hard it is to make games, just in general. Like, coming up with all one is interdisciplinary, so just that very nature of the fact you're going to have a lot of interesting friction in terms of terminology and other things, and working with a team that is from different backgrounds. But it also is the greatest boon of a team to be interdisciplinary as well.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and people underestimate how hard it is to use a fucking engine. Learning a new
Yeah.
engine, man, that
Yeah.
takes time.
Oh,
Um,
I'm learning Unity right now. I I I got a system for movement down, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna send this to the Games Den Discord, and I send a screenshot of my animations page, and I'm like, I should probably clean this up, and I just get a message back with like Google image of some similar animations page, and it just says, don't do this.
Yeah. But that's kind of the thing with self-teaching is you gotta learn what not to do as you go along.
yeah, yeah, it's definitely it's a very interesting. What are the most common mistakes you've seen kind of come out of game jams in that sense in game development that you've seen that you've either made yourselves and have learned not to do, or that you have seen other people do and
One
avoid.
word: scope.
The classic. Bring
Yeah,
out the scope card. The pot of greed.
either either
What's that?
overestimating the size of your scope or underestimating it. Because I've seen people with so much time at the end, um, and just like, I guess we'll touch it up, right? Um, and people who are like, yeah, so we have to cut like 80% of our game.
Yep.
In the last 24 hours of the game jam.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Scope is always the do or die thing, you know?
Yeah,
Uh, you can see where how successful they were on scope just off of a final product 90% of the time.
That's true.
Uh,
That's true.
yeah, it's definitely like everyone remembers it, but it still takes tons of practice to actually get good at deciding your scope.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think one thing that I hope to talk about later on this podcast is in a different, perhaps a different episode is like product management and project management in games. I feel like it's the one thing that people just can't seem to get right, and I think the games industry is generally is, when looking at it as a whole, is really behind of the tech industry when it comes to understanding how project management works and how product management
Yep.
works. And so like I think there are a few good examples, but I think most of the examples that and most people I've talked to, studios that I've talked to, have I don't feel personally coming from as a person who's equally invested in the games industry and the tech industry. Like I see a lot of gaps when it comes to UX, HCI, and just product management on all of those three facets. Like I just think that there's a huge gap in the way games are tackling the issues that come with product management, and I think that it's harder to do in games than it is in tech, just because you have a very interdisciplinary team and huge stacks when it comes to tech and anything else, right?
Yep.
And oftentimes, like, you have multiple people working on the same project, whereas in tech you can have like a team dedicated to a smaller product, for example, or a feature. And a lot of the times in games you're working on the same project files, and so it becomes a messy business. But I still think there are a lot of skills that games can take away from tech when it comes to those fields. Talk about it later. But I do want to. We're coming to the end of the podcast, and so to kind of cap it off, I wanted to talk a little bit about games that you've been playing recently. We can start with you, Evan, because now you wanted to talk about Tiny Islands.
Yeah. So Tiny Islands, I only found this a couple of days ago. It is an amazing little game by who is the creator? Let me just double check quickly, make sure. David King, Dr. David King, who is a professor in London, I believe. And it's this really neat little game based off its own description. It is a digital roll and write game that uses cards instead of dice for generating the items that you draw. And I watched an interview with Dr. King, and he talked about his process for making the game. And in the game, you're making these tiny islands on a grid-based tile, or tile-based grid, that is. and you're placing mountains, forests, houses, churches, all these different little icons that have their own point values based off of where they are. And the dev, he made it in a kind of backwards way than what you would expect. It came about by him just doodling in his notebook and figuring out, hey, certain islands that I draw, they look better than others. Why is that? And it's like, oh, well, I don't like having two churches on one island. That doesn't make sense in my head. And so when he started deving this game, he assigned point values based off of how he felt it looked aesthetically. So boats always have to be far away from an island. There can only be like one church per island. You want as many trees together as possible. Trees separate won't get you as many points, and stuff like that. And I found it's a really interesting way of making a game. It's not what you would normally expect. That it was very aesthetic first, and then building a system and a design off of that instead. And I've just been obsessed. I've played maybe like 20 matches so far, and whenever I find I have 20 minutes, I just load it up. It is addictive, actually.
And that's really interesting because like it's not the rules of the game that kind of govern the point systems is totally based off of aesthetics. That's really interesting. I don't think I've seen many. I think the way Animal Crossing New Horizons handle that is very, very different in terms of like how they rate your island. It's just based on the number of things you have on it, right? Yeah. It's a number-based system. I think it's really cool. I wonder how they judge. That's really interesting. Yeah, it's like, okay, if this boat is this distance away from the island, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So like a boat gets 2 points for every square there is between it and the nearest boat or island. You don't want too many fishing boats near each other. It's very clear on what the rules are, but they make complete sense when you think about them in terms of what would an island actually be like, you know? Yeah. It's like houses get more points for how many various different icons there are near them because you want a nice view outside your window. So if you have a mountain, a tree, and a church, you get more than just 2 trees and a mountain because you have variety.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Oh damn! I think that's fascinating. Actually, it's pretty fascinating, and it's based off a card draw system. You said.
Yeah. So if you know roll and write games at all, where Yahtzee is a roll and write game. You're rolling dice and you decide, and you're drawing onto your pad whatever's happening based off of how you roll those dice. With this, it's just you're presented 2 cards. Each card has one of the icons and a specific spot you can place the icon. So you might get a tree that you can only place in the top right, or a wave that you can only place on the 7th row. And you have to choose which one you want to put where. And then you move on. And once you have a bunch of icons on the board, you get the chance to draw lines to make out your islands and define the borders. And you repeat that gameplay loop 3 times before it tallies up your points.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That could be a board game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You could do this on a whiteboard very easily.
Yeah.
It's very intuitive, and it's completely in browser, so very easy to just load up.
Oh, it's in browser?
I recommend it. Yeah. It's just on it.
Right.
Highly recommended.
Damn.
My high score is 64 points. You won't.
That's a challenge accepted from my side. Maybe we should all just play it together in voice chat sometime. That'd be pretty fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I didn't know it was browser based. I thought it was an actual published game. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. One thing that does interest me about that game is the binary decisions. I wonder if you can just make an AI to play the game flawlessly, right?
He does. So the game is still. Dr. King, he provides daily challenges where it's like the preset icons that he'll give you instead of just it being completely random.
Okay.
And there is a community on Twitter that is devoted to finding the mathematically highest point value you can get from these daily challenges.
That's cool.
So I absolutely believe you can make an AI to do something similar.
That's cool. Because this is a binary decision tree at that point. Like honestly,
yeah,
that's pretty sick. Okay, cool. What have you been playing, Shashank? You want to talk about something?
I'm playing a lot of Pokemon.
Has been on your mind the entire time?
Yeah. I don't know. I got back into Pokemon. Specifically older Pokemon after Sword and Shield dropped, because I didn't buy that game. I wasn't interested in it really. But playing through White 2, it reminds me of how I used to feel when I played Pokemon as a kid, where I it actually was every battle I had to strategize, every battle I had to think about what my next move was. And obviously as a kid, the challenge came from me not knowing what the best thing to do would be. But here it's more like I have all this knowledge at my disposal, but it's still there's still limits to what I'm capable of doing.
Yeah.
Do you think that Pokemon should have a hard mode?
I think so.
Do you think so?
Black and White had a hard mode. Is only available after you beat the game once.
Yeah.
But it was very well received from what I remember. It was very simple. It's like gym leaders, like they have they're 5 levels higher on average, stuff like that. But it's well received.
Damn.
And
I didn't know that.
you know, yeah. I do wish it was available from the beginning and not something you had to beat the game once to do.
Yeah.
But still, it's one of those mechanics they put in for one generation, then dropped, unfortunately.
But like, I wonder why if it was so well received that logically I would have kept the next game. I mean, I would hope. I think they would have collected statistics on this, right? Like, they must have made a data-driven decision to drop it. Because if they didn't, that I would be pretty shocked. I mean, but then again, I'm so confused about this, Nintendo. Answer the Pokemon Company. Answer my questions, man. Like, why did you drop Mega Evolution? Why? Anyway.
Yeah.
Everyone knows. Everyone loves Mega Evolution. Like, it's statistically, you can just put out a poll on Twitter and get insane answers. Even though that's not a formal questionnaire, but
yeah. I decided to look up the difficulty modes for Black and White. There's also an easy mode, which was also only available after you beat the game once. As soon as you beat the champion, you unlocked easy mode, which decreased the level and the AI of the opponents.
What?
Which goes completely against what you would expect or want.
Why would you put an easy mode after you beat the game?
Yeah.
I kind of get that though, because a lot of easy modes advertise themselves as story modes, where you're not too invested in like the combat in some games, or in this case the battling. It's more so you can experience the story as quickly as you can because you've already gone through it once, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe.
I still would like to see it available at the beginning, just for player choice.
That's a good perspective to have, Shashank, actually, right? Now that I think about it, that's a decent... Yeah, it's a good perspective. Like, if you just want to see the story again. Because Black and White did have a pretty good story, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It did have a pretty good story. But I would agree with Evan on this part. Like, just have it in the beginning, honestly. I don't understand why you'd want it. It's not accessible. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, it's... Yeah, there's no... I think that's the only argument to make there. It's not accessible. To have it at
Also,
the end
apparently, these modes are available in Black and White too as well, but you can only get them if you trade the key item with a player from the opposite version. So if you had White 2, you need to find someone with Black 2 and get the item from them to unlock Easy and Challenge mode. So just Nintendo having a good idea and implementing it awfully. So there you go.
Did Game Freak worked on Black and White 2 and Black and White as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Also, apparently, challenge mode was a lot more dynamic than I thought. It increases levels. It also gave gym leaders in Elite Four extra Pokemon, as well as different movesets and held items. It also increased the IVs to 30.
Oh, okay.
Gym leaders in Elite Four.
That makes them pretty
cool,
hard.
actually.
Yeah, that makes them pretty hard. Oh, damn. I think any fighting type gym would wreck the heck out if you don't have any good defensive Pokemon.
Yeah.
Damn, yeah.
We're making Pokemon sort of remake demo in Unity right now, and my team and I we go back and forth about how we're gonna make a battling AI, and the idea I've sort of jokingly settled on is just training a neural network to do it. Just like have network AIs battle each other in order to
Yep.
get an AI. We'll pick like an easy, a medium, and a hard AI.
Oh man, I could totally see you using like a student teacher AI to pull that off. I think that actually might just work.
That'd be really cool to see.
That'd be
And
pretty
just
cool
to
to see.
experiment with.
Yeah, I think it'd be a cool experiment. That's for sure. I'd be
Yeah.
interested to see if you use the GAN too. But
Oh.
yeah.
I wonder if like the AIs would if you let them go long enough, if they develop some sort of meta that humans wouldn't necessarily know.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see.
Mm.
Just let it loose.
Of course,
and,
that'd be going for a long time to develop a solidified meta for an AI.
I mean, you
Still,
also have to restrict
very
like, the
interesting
kind
to
of
think
Pokemon
about.
you can use too, right? Like you can't use
Yeah.
legendaries, so you have to battle with like actual official Pokemon rule sets for
I'd
tournaments and stuff.
probably like give it a specified team with specified movesets and say like you're allowed to attack with these moves for this Pokemon. You're allowed to switch out, and I give them some items and stuff, and you're allowed to use those items, and just see how long they're able to survive and if they're able to defeat their opponent.
If AIs could, so the thing about this is that the AI could do a few things. It could keep a track of the moveset that your Pokemon has, because we only have 4 moves. So the AI would know what moves your Pokemon would learn what moves your Pokemon would have. It
Yeah.
would learn how much damage you do on average, right? With every single move, and if you have stab attack bonuses, and you would know your type for Pokemon as well. So you could really technically make a very competent battler system, I think. A battler AI, I think. Yeah. Because you have information. You have so much information. The only information you don't have is the exact stat values. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a really interesting experiment for sure.
That'd be pretty cool. You know,
Yeah.
if you want to make the AI for that, I mean, yeah, I'd be pretty interested in coding that.
All right.
Yeah. I'd be pretty interested in seeing how that would turn out. Yeah.
What have you been playing?
So I made a few mistakes in my life. One of them was getting back into League of Legends.
Oh, that's always a mistake.
Yep.
I don't even play League
always.
of Legends. I just hear every single League player I've known just be like, "Don't play it."
So I got
start.
into. So I was in high school. So starting high school, and my parents wouldn't pay for my games because they thought it was a bad habit. They think differently now, I hope. But to be fair, video game addiction is a thing. Anyway, they saw. So I saw that I was looking for free games. I used to play these browser games, these browser RPGs called Dragon Fable or something. I forget the name of it. It was
Dragon
ridiculous.
An adventure.
No,
Quest.
it wasn't Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest is
No.
a paid JRPG, but it was something stupid. Dragon Fable. That was the name of the game. It was really garbage, 2D RPG. I used to play a ton of RuneScape. I used to love RuneScape. And I found out about League of Legends as a game because it has a pretty high skill cap, which really attracted me. I only had a couple of consoles that I used to own. The rest of the games I used to play on my friend's console, which is a different story. But I got really into League of Legends because I had a couple of friends who used to play with me all the time. So I used to come from school at like 4 p.m. and I would play the game for an hour before I had to do homework or whatever else it was. And it was ridiculous. Like I played so much League of Legends in that time, and I got fairly good at the game. I stopped playing once I realized how toxic it was. In the last year of high school, and then I picked it up again recently. So I used to play all through season 3 and 4 and 5, but I picked it up recently, just a month ago, I think it was, and I started playing it almost every day. And yesterday I played it. I'm playing ranked because I find that I guess I just feel better at winning a ranked game than a normal game. I think it's a dopamine, probably. Or just the ability to say I beat you in a ranked match. I don't know what it is. I should look into it. But ranked edition is a thing. But recently there were a lot of videos that came out from pro players talking about the state of solo queue in League and complaining about it. I played a game yesterday where my lane was doing pretty fine. I was winning the lane, but the rest of my team was just absolutely feeding their butts off, and like I couldn't carry them. I was playing Jace top, for those of you who speak League, but and I was like being a Gnar in lane, and then like everything was going to shit. The entire team was flaming everybody on the team. It was just a giant shit show. Like, I'm so grateful for mute all. I have never been more grateful for mute all in my entire life. But after the game, which ended 15 minutes, surrender vote, like, I just left the game feeling like absolute garbage. I felt like absolute shit, because there were so many variables out of my control. And I think that is the reason people go on. I never felt this tilted before in my entire life. Like, I was actually so angry at the game, and I was so angry at myself for not being able to carry. So I immediately quit the game after that, and I uninstalled the client because I was just like, I don't need like negativity in my life. It's like, it's something else. It's something else.
I want to start the toxic train.
Yeah, like it was a weird moment, right? Because I was like, damn, I feel angry. And I don't feel angry very often in my life, but like, it's just like, shit. Like, I actually felt really frustrated in that moment. I was like, wow, I don't want this. Evan, you're a new player to League. How do you feel about the game?
Yeah, I played probably less than 20 matches at this point. I'm not new to the MOBA scene. I played Smite for years, so I understand the general mechanics pretty decently. It's just a matter of learning both League's lingo, and actually mostly the biggest challenge I've had is learning what the jungle is and how it works compared to what I'm used to.
I don't think Riot knows the jungle is either.
Yeah, there's a lot of camps in League's jungle. You know, in Smite's 5v5 mode, I think there's something like, I want to say like 8 different types of camps. And League has a lot more from my understanding, and every camp has like different alterations, like there's all the different drakes and all that. I will say, I have not seen much toxicity in these very beginner lobbies I've been in, impressively enough. It's been relatively chill, because no one knows what they're doing. So everyone's just kind of figuring out what's going on, how to build, you know, what's a vein and how do I use them. Yeah, and that's pretty much all my experience with League has been. I will say I don't know. I might pop in for a bit occasionally. I've been so late to playing League compared to other MOBAs just because I'm not a big fan of the control style. That's why I play Smite, is because I love the WASD controls rather than mouse movement. Although I absolutely understand what you know about having people on your team who just end up flaming everyone, and you can't win, and it just sucks. Which is why when I do play MOBAs now, I only ever play in modes that support the number of people I have in my party. So I always know everyone I'm with, and we can communicate properly, and we actually have influence over each other, as opposed to just flaming someone in chat. Like, you know, I played Smite a few nights ago, and I played the 3v3 mode, and it ended up in a base race after, you know, both teams were about to win, and we just barely pulled it off because we were able to shout calls to each other and say, hey, we just took this tower, keep pushing. We don't have time to back and defend, we just have to hope we kill before them, and we managed to. And that comes down to communication and knowing who you're with. So, yeah, I definitely get what you mean about just being in a lobby of people you don't know and they can't communicate with you properly.
Yeah.
Effectively.
Yeah. I think it also goes down to the player base. I feel a lot of League's player base just like know that the penalty for being a toxic player isn't that great.
Yeah.
And so they're okay
it's
with
the same with Smite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think MOBA suffer from this a lot. I'm not sure what the steps for moderation of that is. I think there's just more people who are actually actively getting paid to be mods. I think that's the solution, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, like I feel like one of the things that I have 2 lessons I want to talk about I learned from League of Legends as a game. And these are life lessons I learned from League of Legends as a game. The first lesson I learned from League of Legends is that if you ever find yourself in being extremely toxic and being frustrated, take a break. Don't sit on that for longer because it's going to fuel you. And this applies to everything in life. Like if you're doing an assignment or a project and you just feel very frustrated at it, take a breather, however long that is, and take a step away from it to get perspective, basically. Second lesson I learned from League of Legends is mindset and the importance of mindset, even in the most smallest things. Like I've been in a little bit of rut recently. In the last month, I haven't been able to feel nearly as motivated to go do things. And obviously motivation is different from willpower, so I haven't had the willpower to do a lot of things. I've been sitting in my house for the most part, playing games and trying to kind of push myself to go out and get exercise for that, but I haven't been really good about it. And then I played League of Legends 2 nights ago, and I had this revelation where I was like, the players, every single time I've been, and that's an observation, every single time I've been in a game where one person says, in 5 minutes into the game, because they gave one kill, one death in lane, is that GG, FFs, it's over, right? Yep. And like the moment a person says that in game and starts to really believe that in game, 5 minutes in, that game is lost, because you're already playing a 4v5 game at that point.
Yeah.
And so like one thing that's taught me about life in that sense is what's taught me about life is that if you ever have a mindset for 4v5, you will be playing a 4v5 the rest of the game. Mm-hmm. So you gotta always approach things with a mindset of like, sure, I gave a kill in lane, I made a mistake. There's still a lot I can still do. There's a lot of variables under my control in that sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, mentality accounts for a lot more than people end up thinking.
Yeah.
Especially in the moment. The effect it can have to just look at things from a different perspective is insane. But also rather than saying, "Oh, I died. Why did I die? How can I get better from that?"
Yeah,
it's just a huge improvement.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that even if you have, so if you have one player who's like saying, "FFs, this game's over. I gave one kill over to the enemy laner. It's unbeatable now. This lane's too hard." Like instead of if you have one player like that, but you have the mid laner, for example, or jungler, or whoever else it is, who's thinking, like, okay, if this lane is getting fucked over by a jungler, I can go top and I can get some more kills top and then feed that lane, right? Like, when I almost find, in my experiences with the game, it's like the players who are confident about who have a mindset of like, it's still winnable, a mindset of like, it's still doable, or the mindset of, sure, this game's over, but the next one's always gonna be good. Those people climb the ladder so much faster than anybody who's stuck in bronze or stuck in iron. You know what I mean? It's a mindset difference. I think if people want to know how to climb in MOBAs, climb in competitive games, it's mindset. That's the only answer. Yeah. I genuinely feel like mindset's the only answer to that problem.
Yeah.
What was the quote from the Donkey Valorant video? I can't hear you from the bottom of the leaderboard.
Bottom of the rank ladder, yeah.
Yeah.
That was really good. But yeah, I've been playing League of Legends. I've stopped playing Legends now for a while. I'll take a break from it, and I might come back to it after I've gotten some perspective.
Good plan.
Yeah. How much time? How are we doing on time?
We're a little over.
We're a little over? Okay. Good talk, guys.
Talk. I think we got our 3 pillars in there.
Yeah, I'm sure we kind of waddled some way in there. Either way, it was fun talking to you guys. I think I really enjoyed ranting.
Yeah, it was fun.
Hopefully,
it's a great note to end on. A life lesson. Thanks for my TED Talk.
Yep.
Always, we need a moral to the story every single time we do one of these.
That's gonna be a trend now. Okay, I dig it. All right. Well, thanks, guys. I'll see you all next week or something. I don't know.
Yeah, come join us at our Discord. We welcome literally anyone. If you like talking, making, or playing games, show up. You'll find your people there.
Yeah, I think what the best thing to love about our Discord is our community. We're so wholesome. It's hilarious. Yeah. It's amazing. But yeah, you can find us at thegamesden.ca. That's the website. You can find a Discord link at the very bottom. And you can follow us on Twitter at GamesDenUFA. You can follow me on Twitter at Attydude. That's ATTYDUDE. Plug myself here real quick. Where can people find you guys if you're open to sharing social media stuff?
I mean, I don't really have social media.
That's fair. I tweet a lot, so I saw followers. Kidding.
I have a Twitter that I hardly ever use, but EverentTD. That's EVERENTD.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all for listening. If you are listening.
Yeah, we are a new podcast, so any advice you guys have, send it our way. Hopefully, we can make a better episode 2, 3 onwards.
One of the issues I have is that when I get excited, I talk extremely fast, and I've been working on that for the past 2 years, but like it's been slow progress. I think I'm gonna be a little more cognizant next time around.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is a great way for me to practice my speech therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyways, yeah, tune into the next episode on YouTube or wherever you're watching this.
This is such memes, man.
Figure that out once this episode is done being edited and everything.
Yeah.
It's just meme content the entire way through.